If you hold any XRP at all, even a small stack, this is the moment you need to hear every word of what I am about to say, because something just shifted quietly behind the scenes. Not in retail speculation, not on social media, not in price action, but in institutional behavior. And when institutions move, they do not shout it. They do not warn you. They do not leave breadcrumbs. They move in silence. And the rest of the world only understands what happened after it is already too late. Welcome back to Blockchain of Ra, the place where we look past the noise and into the real machinery behind global liquidity. Before we continue, hit like so this reaches more XRP holders. Subscribe if you refuse to stay blind to what is unfolding, and drop a comment telling me whether you are holding long-term or short-term. And as always, nothing in this video is financial advice. It is purely formational. Crypto is volatile, markets shift fast, and you are responsible for your own decisions. Right now, as I record this, XRP is trading in the low double-digit cent range. Quiet, uneventful, almost motionless. Retail sees this stillness as weakness, but institutions see something else entirely. They see opportunity. They see compression. They see liquidity building beneath the surface. They see the exact setup that always appears before a structural shift in global settlement. And here's where everything changes. A senior institutional liquidity analyst, someone who works with settlement infrastructure, not charts, just revealed something subtle but massive. Their message was simple. The environment that institutions have been waiting for has arrived. Not approaching, not someday. Arrived. They explained that the combination of tokenization acceleration, rising cross-border settlement friction, treasury inefficiencies, and liquidity fragmentation has reached a point where the old rails can no longer support what the global economy is demanding. That may sound technical, but the meaning is very simple. When the old system breaks, the new system must activate. And XRP was built for this exact activation. The analyst described the situation like a dam under pressure. For years, liquidity has been pooling behind the scenes, building quietly as banks and financial institutions integrated Riplet corridors, tested ODL flows, and prepared for tokenized settlement. But, they said, the part nobody sees, the pressure on the other side. The liquidity bottlenecks, the settlement delays, the cross-border costs rising at the worst possible time. And when that pressure reaches a breaking point, a floodgate does not open slowly. It opens instantly. This is where the first emotional retention spike hits, because that floodgate is opening right now. And if you hold any XRP, literally any amount, you are positioned in front of something that retail will not understand until the moment it happens. You know how Brad, David, and others have repeatedly hinted that the future of finance is already being built behind the scenes? Institutions do not wait for the public to catch up. They move first, quietly in the dark. They coordinate before the headlines appear. And every signal from the institutional side says that coordination is now shifting into activation. Wallet clustering is increasing. Cross-border corridors are showing pre-activation volume patterns. Sell walls on major pairs are thinning. Large accounts that have been dormant for months are moving again. And the institutional analysts said exactly what those signals indicate. The liquidity pathways are opening. Not hypothetically, not eventually. Now, if you hold any XRP, understand the magnitude of that word, because this is not a retail pump. This is not a hype cycle. This is not a rumor-driven rally. This is a structural transition in the global settlement architecture, the kind that reprices assets based on utility, not speculation. Retail sees quiet price action. Institutions see the door unlocking. To understand what it means for an institutional floodgate to open, you have to understand the mechanism underneath all of this. Because XRP's value is not coming from price charts or social sentiment, It is coming from the role it plays inside a system that most regular investors never see, never hear about, and never understand until the transition is already complete. The institutional analyst who signaled the shift explains something that is rarely discussed publicly. The global financial system is not failing because of technology. It is failing because of timing. Everything moves too slowly. Currencies settle too slowly. Banks transfer liquidity too slowly. Treasury departments move funds too slowly. And in a world where markets are becoming tokenized at the speed of software, slow settlement is fatal. This entire system is built on a settlement model, created decades before the digital economy existed. Today, that system is collapsing under the weight of its own inefficiency. Banks must freeze capital in Nostro and Varo accounts just to support basic cross-border transfers. Corporations lose liquidity every time they move funds globally. Central banks struggle to coordinate large-scale settlements during volatility. And meanwhile, the tokenization of assets, bonds, funds, currencies, property is accelerating so quickly that the settlement layer simply cannot keep up. This is where XRP enters the mechanism. XRP is not a competitor to currencies. It is the bridge between them. It is not a new version of the old system. It is a replacement for the part of the system that slows everything down. Instead of banks keeping billions trapped in dormant accounts around the world, XRP lets them settle instantly, on demand, with a single neutral asset that frees up all that frozen liquidity. What makes this moment so important is not just the technology, it is the pressure. The institutional analyst described it clearly. The financial system is reaching a liquidity stress point. That stress point forces innovation, whether institutions want it or not. When settlement becomes too slow to support tokenized markets, the adoption of a real-time settlement bridge is not optional. It is mandatory. And here is the part that matters most. If you hold any amount of XRP once settlement corridors switch from pre-unded rails to on-demand rails, the repricing of the bridge asset is not incremental. It is sudden because the value does not come from speculation. It comes from replacing a multi-trillion-dollar friction layer. Think about that. When the world moves to a model where value is tokenized, the bridge asset becomes the most important component of the system. It becomes the connector between markets. It becomes the settlement brain of the entire framework. The analyst explained that institutions have already prepared for this. Corridors have been built quietly. Integrations have been tested silently. Wallet infrastructure has been staged. The only piece left was the economic environment forcing the shift. And now that environment has arrived. This is why the floodgate metaphor matters. For years, everything has been loading behind the scenes. Institutions were preparing silently. The pipes were built, the rails were connected. But the pressure on the opposite side kept building. And once it reaches its limit, the gate does not open halfway. It opens all at once. Most retail investors will not realize what happened until after XRP is already moving. They will not understand the macro mechanism. They will not understand institutional timing. They will not understand why the price action looked dead before the shift. But you will, because you are seeing the system, not the chart. The moment you understand how institutions actually behave, everything about this quiet XRP phase starts to make perfect sense. Retail investors look at stillness and assume nothing is happening. But whales and institutions look at stillness and see the perfect environment. They wait for boredom. They wait for disbelief. They wait for the exact moment retail loses interest, because that is when liquidity can be gathered without attention. This is why you see the same patterns every time before an XRP expansion. Shrinking sell walls, clustering wallets, quiet corridor activity, increasing off-exchange movement. All while social media says nothing is happening. It is the oldest pattern in the market, but it works every time because the psychological gap between retail and institutions never changes. Retail wants excitement. Institutions want silence. Retail wants confirmation. Institutions want early positioning. Retail wants proof. Institutions want entry. That is why the institutional analyst said the floodgate has opened, not because the price moved, not because the media covered it, not because hype returned, but because the internal signals that institutions track have aligned at the same time. Settlement friction rising, tokenized volume expanding, treasury inefficiency hitting dangerous levels, and cross-border rails entering their upgrade window. When these signals synchronize, the shift is not optional, it is forced. Liquidity has to move whether anyone is emotionally ready or not. And here is where the second retention spike hits. XRP has always moved after boredom, never during hype, always after disbelief, never during attention, always after silence, never during noise. And right now we are in one of the deepest silence phases XRP has seen in years. That silence is not weakness. It is compression, pressure, preparation. You can feel it if you look past the chart. The world is moving into a tokenized financial era. Whether people believe it or not, the settlement layer is the missing puzzle piece. And XRP was designed to be that piece long before the public ever took it seriously. If you hold any amount of XRP, you are not just holding a coin. You are holding a position inside a system that is about to be forced into its next phase. When the institutional floodgate fully opens, the shift will not wait for retail to understand. It will not give warnings. It will not move in slow motion. It will move when the system requires it, not when the public expects it. The quiet you are feeling right now is the final calm before the new settlement model reveals itself. And when it does, the change will feel sudden. But it was never sudden. The signals were here the whole time. The institutions were preparing the whole time. The system was pushing toward this moment the whole time. Most people will understand this after the fact, but you are here now, in the final minutes before the transition. And if you made it to this point in the video, type the word awake in the comments, so I know you saw through the silence and felt the truth beneath it. That one word helps the algorithm, strengthens this community, and tells me you are part of the few who truly understand what is unfolding. Tap like so more XRP holders can wake up. Subscribe to Matrix Millionaire so you never miss the real signals. And comment awake right now to show that you see what others still cannot. The floodgate is opening. The system is shifting, and you are awake for it.